down, landing, win. Right, back to Smack Talk. Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Smack Talks. Real good to be back, largely because of you guys and all the support you have given us. And we've got an action-packed show coming up for you this month.
Tonight we have a small interview with Chad Ace. We've got another interview with the legend, the superstar, Gary Parks. We have a moment with Nelson talking about opinions, tech stuff and other bits and pieces. We have the teams race as voted by you guys, the Scrappers vs Rebels from 1994.
What a kick-ass teams race that one is too, so stick around, lots coming up.
See you soon.
Coming up next, we've got an interview with rising star Chad Ace, driver of the 4P machine. Huggy sits down with him and asks him the serious questions in this interview.
Hey Chad, thanks for talking to Smack Talk. First of all, how did you get into Speedway?
First got into Speedway in mini stocks. My father bought a mini stock off a car yard actually, and sort of escalated from there. At the time, Sean Pearson was driving super stock for my father, and so sort of, couldn't really step away from it. I was out in the shed when I walked out there, so yeah, drove the mini stock and then sold it and got a mini stock off the Joblins, which Adam Joblin drove at the time. It was a real competitive mini stock, and sort of would have been 3 seasons in the mini stock and done 2 seasons in youth, 1 season adult, and then that was good. That's where you learn all your racecraft and your driving skills from, and then yeah, that's how I started.
So now I recall a stand down in the mini stock in Hartley early on. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, sort of went all the way to Hartley, and I think it was a bit of a championship, and my engine started losing oil pressure and the oil light came on, so I decided I didn't go all the way to Hartley for no reason, so I just took another car into the wall and got stood down for 3 weeks.
So how did you find the change from open wheels to super stocks?
It was a huge difference. Open wheelers, like the mini sprints I drove, didn't have power steering, had big tyres, heaps of grip, no horsepower. Huge difference with small tyre on the super stock and just 500 horsepower plus, so it takes a lot of mind to foot control. You've got to sort of be your own kind of traction control, I guess, and especially on a slick track, it really the drivers show their skills there. But the contact side of it took a bit of coming to grips with, and just learning to give someone a punt off the end, and learning that they don't get offended by it, you're allowed to hit them and things like that. Yeah.
What's your plan for the rest of the season, and how are you finding the new 4P?
The plan for the rest of the season is to sort of try and come to grips with the new car and get the most out of it I can, and we want to start next season with a big bang, and so that's what this season's all about, is getting used to the car, becoming one with it, and learning how to drive it properly. Pretty happy with the new car. Haven't made our minds up what we're going to do as yet, but it's definitely a lot more user friendly. When you get steel damage, it's got half the steel in it, so it's not as many hours for me to spend in the shed.
On that note, how many hours do you do in the shed a week?
It all depends on how much damage you get, I guess. Steel work takes time. General maintenance on the car, if it's a damage-free week, then I guess I'll still come out to the shed and put 2-3 hours in every night, just checking things, going over things, greasing things, lubing things, cleaning air filters, fuel pumps, oil changes. The time spent in the shed shows on the results on the track.
Are there many changes?
There is changes, yeah, with the new car. The gill chassis has a solid front beam in it. The tri-rail obviously has the independent suspension. That's you got to drive the car a different type of way. I find that the tri-rail can go in a little bit harder, I think. But what I found is the gill car, it'll come off the corner a bit different, and it's all about driving it different. The driving styles, I find, is the biggest thing I'm struggling with at the moment, to get the driving style from my other car out of me, and trying to get it going good in the new one.
And lastly, what advice would you give to a mini stock driver or people looking at getting into speedway?
Advice to a mini stock driver, I'd be smooth. In mini stock, you really need to keep up momentum. As soon as you build that up, you just got to be smooth. Watch at least half a lap in front of you. Just be smart. Don't need to take that gap straight away. And use the outside line. The mini stocks tend to, if you can make the outside line work, and you can really build up a big momentum, no sharp turns, things like that. And someone getting into speedway, then you start small and build off that. It's not all about winning the first race. It's about building a good package in the car with you, your spares, and then it all comes eventually.
Thanks for taking some time out to talk to us, Chad.
No problem. Right, so here we have the independent suspension on the tri-rail. Like I said before, with the other car, it's a lot easier to repair, but on the flip side, this car is a lot harder to damage. I find that I've never bent a rocker arm in the car, and there's a lot more going on, so when you do get damaged, it's a big job to get it going and fix it again. A lot more arms to set up, things like that. But the advantage with the independent suspension is when one side moves, the opposite side doesn't. So here we have the solid axle of the Keith Gill chassis. The biggest advantage I've found with this is it's easy to repair when you get damage. 8 bolts and the arms are off. Stub axle damage, it's 2 clips and the pin's out, new stub axle on. So if you do get damaged, you have a good chance of getting out for the next race.
first ever Wellington Stockcar champion was 19W Alan Eager, and the second one was what two teams made it to the final in the first ever standard stock teams champs held in Palmerston North, and that was the Pumas and the Rotorua Rascals. Just a bit of useless information there as well. Gisborne, the Eastland Eagles, won both their races, including over the Pumas, and didn't make the final, so a bit of a shame. And the third question was what driver used bulldozer levers to get round the track, and that was Stratford driver 91S Harold Cowles. So there's the answers for the first quiz, and unlucky to the guys that didn't quite get there, but hey, you get an even better prize this week with the book and the t-shirt. So we have put together by our man Wall once again. He's gone a little bit easier on you guys this week, seeing as no one stepped up to the plate. And first question in the quiz is, who was 2NZ after the New Zealand champs in 1983 in Wellington? Who was 2NZ after that meeting? Second question is, what team won the Superstock Teams Nationals in Auckland in 2002? And the third and final question, get all three of these right, get the prizes, is at this year's Palmerston North Teams Champs as well as the Superstock Teams Nationals in Auckland, how many times did Simon Joblin end up on his lid? You know what to do, go to the Facebook, private message us the answers and go into the draw.
We've been privileged enough to have Gary Parks, the Panther legend, sit down and have a talk with us about his career, teams racing, the great battles with Dave Evans and all the above.
I'm here with former two-time New Zealand champion Gary Parks, former World 240 champion also. Welcome to Smack Talk.
Yep, thanks for coming.
Now Gary, tell us how you got into stock cars originally.
Originally, I actually was keen. I'd come from motocross, and I was a motorbike mechanic, and I was actually keen to get into solo. And went looking for a solo, and found that was pretty hard to get a good competitive bike, and it just didn't seem my thing at the time. And then the Bryce Penn car popped up at New Zealand Champs here at Palmy, and it was the right price. I could afford it, so we bought it and did it. And that was the beginnings, really. It was just jumping at the deep end and learn how to bounce off the wall.
And so from there, what prompted you to want to build your own cars?
I'm sort of always a bit of a do my own thing person, and my cars were always a little bit different, you know. I mean, we used steering box out of a tractor and things because that's what our business is, and it was just interesting to, just pick up on the things that we wanted to change. We wanted to, try different things, and I was always watching what everybody else was doing and looking at their cars and trying to pick ideas out of it and then mould them into my own way of doing it, so that's sort of where my own cars came from.
Great. You're a bit of a master of building your own chassis, a lot of cool cars over the years, innovative in a lot of areas as well. Is there a few over the years that you'd like to touch on?
Yeah, probably they were all a little bit different. We used to actually build a new chassis sort of at Easter, really. We'd be the end of the season for us, and we'd sit the car that we'd just finished with, which was usually sold by then, and model the next one out on the floor beside it, sort of thing, and change a few things as we went along. I had a great guy that's always helped me, Wayne Green. He was a brilliant engineer and still is, and he's helped me all the way through, really. We've done some of them on my own, and that first twin arc car that he built virtually on his own, so he's probably prompted me along to build cars as well, because he was keen to help, and like I say, he's a lot better finishing engineer than I ever will be.
Nice. And if you could pick a car out of your whole racing career, what was the pick of the bunch?
For me, I like them all, but probably the blue one that had the skirts, if anybody can remember back to the one that we put
skirts around the bottom of it, which was just a gimmick. It was just one of those things. We just did it just as a bit of a hoot, but it didn't make any difference to the car. Everybody sort of looked at it and wondered why we'd done it, but it was just a bit of an eye-catching thing. But that was probably the best car that I felt the most comfortable in. I never won anything spectacular in it, but it was just one that year. I can't even remember which year it was, but it was the one. It was blue all over. It had blue chassis with the blue body and the skirts, and that was probably. It was a good car to build. It just sort of fell into place, you know. But they've all got a little personal sort of something about them that is really, really quite cool. You know, there's something we've changed in each one, and you know, we had played with torsion bars, and like I say, we watched what everybody else was doing. You know, Kirk came along with the space frames, and we sort of looked at that and changed things to sort of do our own thing as we went along, really.
Now, you struck success early on in your career, racing, and the 1983 New Zealand Champs. You became New Zealand Champ for the first time. Can you remember a bit about that meeting? Oh
yeah, it was a rain out, I know, on the first night, and it was a big call for me because I was still relatively young in my career. I was sort of probably the up and coming, but I probably wasn't. It probably made me drive a lot better. Had a lot of luck that day. First final, the clutch was slipping, and good old Holden clutch. We put on our tallest tyres we could, and let the clutch slip a little bit, and it just held together. I mean, today it would never hold for that length of time, but just let the clutch slip, run as clean and as tight as we could run, and kept as smooth as we could, and kept out of trouble, because I knew if I got into trouble I was going to have clutch trouble, you know. So we really drove that way because of the clutch problem, and it came through for us, you know. And at the end of the day there were half a dozen cars ahead of us going to that final heat, and I sort of just could see them all getting taken out, and yeah, so I just kept smooth. It was a lucky win, and there was a bit of controversy over that as well, because Wellington didn't have their points up. They only had points up for the top cars, and I was lucky. Like the 6 top cars had their points up there, and I was probably 7th, you know. So nobody knew what points I had, and we'd sort of done a bit of homework and worked it out. We knew we were up there, but. And then as the cars, you know, the Barry Hunters and all them got taken out as the race went on in the final, we knew we were pretty close.
Great. In 1991 you became a 2-time New Zealand champion. Famous track for Palmerston North when it is the New Zealand Champs time. How did that meeting go for you, and what did it mean to become a 2-time New Zealand champ and solidify your place in history?
Yeah, well, that was a great run as well, really. We were sort of... once again, there was a bit of luck. There always seems to be a lot of luck in a New Zealand Champs to win it. I love the Nelson track. I think it's an absolutely awesome track to drive on, and it just suited as we went. But you know, it's the same old thing. We weren't going to go to practice. We were just going to go down and do the qualifying and race. And I sort of got itchy the night before, and we went down and we sat on the wharf in Wellington all day waiting to get on the ferry, because we weren't booked till the next day, and got on one of the later sailings and drove straight to the track, and we did the practice. The amount of things that went wrong, we had suspension trouble, we had starter motor gave out, we had a lot of trouble at the practice, all things that probably would have cost us a DNF in the qualifying the next night. So you know, that's just a bit of luck. And even coming to the final, the third heat, we were actually taken to the wall in the first corner of the third heat, and I think the whole field would have seen us taken to the wall, and probably just forgot about us that little bit, you know. And we battled back. We actually got right back to 2nd or 3rd in that final heat, but people just were then concentrating on someone else, and it was a big battle. And finished that 3rd heat, and we looked over the car after the heat, because we never got another touch in that 3rd heat. Went around the car afterwards. We probably had a 2-inch split in the right rear tyre, which wouldn't usually not. It wasn't through it was just holding by one layer of canvas, sort of thing, and normally wouldn't have never held, but it had to have happened from that first corner. So you know, that's a bit of luck as well. You know, normally you look at tyres go flat for no reason, but that one held together, so that was a plus.
Oh, that's the one. Now, over the years, many years, you and Dave Evans got together every Saturday night at the arena.
Yep.
Put on a show for the crowd. What was the rivalry like? Was it a battle for number one in Palmerston North? Was it just stock car racing at its best?
It was very different with Dave. I mean, Dave's a very quiet. Anybody that knows Dave, he's a very quiet guy, but he was a very clever stock car driver. I learned so much from racing with him and against him. I went out there. I refused to pull over and let him go past. You know, that was really what got me to where I was, and it built up a bit of mutual respect. And I mean, I can remember he would wind me off if I was in the wrong place. I can remember hitting the wall backwards and the gearbox exploding between my feet and things like that. And I learned a few of those lessons the hard way, but I think that gave me the drive to actually to build cars a bit better. I looked at his tanks and that, and I just didn't believe that they kept on tight on pole as well as they could. And I read books, and I don't read much, but I read these, the American Speedway setup books and things like that, and I reckoned I could build a car that would drive around on pole. And I knew that was the only way to beat him. It was like people today trying to beat Peter Rees. You're never going to beat Peter Rees by putting him in the wall, because he's a master at it. And Dave Evans was as well. So for me to beat Dave Evans, I had to outdrive him, and it was probably a lot easier back then than it would be to beat Peter Rees today. But I just built a car, and that's where my independent suspension and some of the things we tried. We went to that and built a car that could actually drive around the inside of me. And I just had to make sure that once I got past him, I could get far enough away that he couldn't catch me at the next corner. But and occasionally he did. But generally, I think I probably frustrated him.
Speaking of the Panthers, you and the General were basically the soul of that team for many years, and you took a lot of championships together as well. You did the 4-peat, which ran from 89 to 92, and over those years, the secret to the success, good teamwork, or?
Well, it was good teamwork. It was hard going because there were some up and comings, but there was, Dave and I were probably the crux of those teams those years. We got on really well when it came to teams racing. I was good at keeping out of trouble, and he was good at putting the other team out of the race. I mean, he carried so much respect that it used to draw a lot of cars. Used to draw to him. He could draw a car off my tail, and so he between us we probably set some of those teams races alight. But you got to have a rest of the team, and whoever else was out there with us at those times was top guys, and they learnt from what they did at the time, and some of them went on to become top drivers too. So it was good learning for everybody.
Made a comeback in 2004, maybe late 03. Bevan Clark built car.
Yeah, the Bevan Clark built car that Michael Grant owned. Yeah, Michael just came to me really, and he says, "Oh, I've got this car that's sort of sitting down. It was sitting down in Shannon in bits, and he said, "Oh, I want to get rid of it." He said, "Can you just do a couple of meetings in it for us, And so we did a couple of meetings, and it went alright. It was a good car. It was underpowered. That was its biggest problem. It just didn't have a lot of power. So, but it was a good, strong, reliable car, and yeah, we did a bit of a comeback in that.
You took an amazing victory in the World 240 Champs that year. I can remember quite clearly your driving style, hugging the pole line, which you do very well. That certainly was the way to bring it home in that meeting. I can remember the likes of Kim Lace and Stan Hickey, who were the fastest cars on that weekend, just could not get by.
Yeah, that was a bit of a memory there too. Yeah, because it was, and once again we just did run that tight line. The track was slick and horrible for most people, because and that's where they just couldn't put their power on the ground. And that old Ford 6 actually blew a head gasket in the second final, and we struggled to get water in it just to get it cool for the final. And first time I've ever done it where there was a stoppage halfway through the third heat, and I thought, well, I know this thing is just not going to hold the water, so I turned it off and sat there while the reds were on, and then it started again. I thought, I'm going to look pretty silly here if it doesn't start, but believe it or not, some people do turn their cars off, but I never have. I've always left the
It's a bit of a
Miser.
risk, isn't it?
It's a bit of a risk that it's not going to go, yeah.
Big famous one there, Parksy, that was an amazing one.
Built another car of our own, which we sort of just couldn't really get back into the groove, really. That was about the way I had to look at it, yeah.
The Daryl Taylor chassis, or what he owns now, it is a good strong car. It's certainly a very quick car, so you can't be too disappointed about that.
No, I'm not. It was we had a lot of engine trouble that year. I actually I wanted to go with a radical engine, and it's still never been used, but I believed at the time I wanted to go with a BMW engine, and I thought it would work, and I built that car. It had a lot of offset, so it was a bit, it was a hard car to drive if you weren't quite had the power right and things. So I really enjoyed building that car. It was sort of like the last car that I wanted to build, So it just really, the engine let us down, and in the end I went back to Ross Dallas, who's built my engines forever and hadn't built that engine for me, and he said when we were building it, he said, "Oh, this is wrong, that's wrong," and because we were good mates as well, and I said, "Oh, well, that's what the guy reckons," and he said, "Well, when it doesn't work, you bring it back to me and I'll make it go for you," and he's still building that engine now, and in actual fact, that engine, until just recently when it gave trouble, was the same engine that Roscoe rebuilt for me when I sold it to Daryl. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been a good engine since.
Finally, your involvement with Speedway now, of course you've got your family and...
well, if all our kids have raced, Dion and Renee in mini stocks, and Josh now in a stock car. We're actually building a new chassis. Josh building a new chassis this year, which is along the lines of one of my old chassis, so it's a space frame though. But it'll have a lot of, we'll stick with the independent and a lot of things there. He's starting to get a bit better, so
yes, you can certainly see the confidence growing over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's hard for these guys. It sort of stands out because he hasn't done mini stocks, and I think mini stocks has been a huge thing for the stock cars. With the likes of Jaden Ward and Asher Rees and Jack Myers, those sort of guys coming through they've got so much advantage because they've done that steady laps in mini stocks, and it stands out that they really are a force. And yeah, I'm well involved with the Pumas and the Panthers, of course, which are a brilliant bunch of guys to work for. Work with myself as a manager and mentor for them.
If I was to put you on the spot, if there was one of the current Panthers drivers you would take into a team's race with you, who would you take? Out
of the current Panthers, they're very hard to pick one out of them. I mean,
I'm making you.
Yeah, you're making me alright. I mean, the standout for me is Peter Rees. I mean, Peter Rees, when it comes to teams racing, is going to be a legend. I mean, he is a legend, really.
Lives and breathes the sport.
Yeah. I mean, if you put it another way, is the one person that you wouldn't leave out of a team's race, and as the manager, I mean, that's my job to pick who does go out in the team's race. And I mean, I've said to Pete, one day will come that I don't put you out there, but at the moment I'm never not going to put you out there. So, and he knows that, and he rises to the occasion.
The fundraising for young Jesse Besson's still going strong. The raffle going around the country at the moment. Still around 400, 450 odd tickets left. For those of you who don't know or didn't see the first show, the young Jesse Besson is a young 3-year-old who has an inoperable brain tumour, and his parents are doing everything they can to get him the professional treatment that he needs in Texas and the United States. So they have the raffle going around at the moment. It's $50 a ticket, and the prizes are just absolutely unreal. There's the brand new dry sump Highport Toyota V8 Super Stock worth around $95,000. That is the first prize. Could be the cheapest Super Stock. Well, it will be the cheapest Super Stock that anyone's ever obtained. The $15,000 flat chassis Holden V6 ready to race stock car with a great spares package a part of that as well, and also the tandem trailer worth around $6,500. Comes with a WAF and a registration also. So I'll put a list on the screen now of all the people that are available around New Zealand to get yourself a ticket, and again it's only $50, every little bit helps, and the raffle is going to be drawn around June the 30th. The stipulation is that all tickets need to be sold in order for the raffle to go ahead, so make sure you get yourself one and do what you can to help Jesse and their family, get him the professional help that he needs. Hey all you single mums out there, we got sprint car driver and fan favourite Nelson Hartley from the head shop.
Talking about tech stuff, he's also got an opinion about the current situation with the stock cars and the shops. So I hope you enjoy A Moment with Nelson.
Hi, Nelson here for A Moment with Nelson. Been talking to Hughes and he's told me that we've had a bit of fan mail this week, so got access to Facebook on the phone. And the first piece of mail here, young Lucy writes from ep2. Dear Mr. A Moment with Nelson, my name's Lucy and I live with my mother in ep2. I'm 5 years old and I recently heard her saying she's been looking for a guy with a big motor. Oh, Lucy, that's nice, but this is the wrong kind of show for that. I've been asked a few times recently, what is torque and what is horsepower, and how do they relate? When we measure an engine, we measure its power output, horsepower, and we measure its torque, and we also know about its RPM. We do that using a dynamometer. Everyone talks about putting an engine on a dyno. So the three things that are important to everyone are RPM, horsepower, and torque. So I'm going to do some quick diagrams. RPM, horsepower, and torque. Now what we measure on a dyno is simply torque and RPM. We don't actually measure horsepower. Horsepower is simply a calculation of torque and RPM. So most people have seen a torque wrench. You do up your wheels with it. It's simply a force over a distance. So in this case, it's we're measuring 45 pounds. We're measuring 45 pounds at a foot. So it's pound foot or foot pound. Some people refer it, but actually it's called pound foot. And that's around an axis. We measure that with an engine as well. If we consider that this nut here, this half-inch hex here was the output of the engine, we've got a big brake that we put on the back of the engine, and it pushes it down into a load cell, so it's all at tangents, and we're measuring the torque, and we're also measuring the RPM. So say an engine produces 400 pound-foot of torque, that's calculated through that, and so it's force times distance, and that's really simple. RPM is how many times the engine does a revolution per minute. Most people are aware of that. Most superstock engines, interestingly, come off a corner at about 3,500, 4,500 RPM, and are probably pulling anywhere between 8 and 10,000 RPM at the end of the straight, just as a bit of a sideline there. Now what horsepower is how much work or energy an engine produces, and we measure that as a calculation of torque and RPM. So the maths for that is horsepower equals torque times RPM divided by 5252. Don't need to go into the details of why we use that number, but that's how we measure the energy output of an engine. Just the same as measuring the energy output of a tin of beans or a light bulb, which is measure in kilowatts, which we also measure engine output in. We also measure engines in kilowatts or horsepower, metric versus imperial. And it's just the maths. So when someone says to you, my engine produces a lot of torque but very little horsepower, and then they say, all its torque comes, but I pull this amount of RPM. Now what you can infer from that is, because horsepower is a calculation of RPM and torque, you know that if it's making X amount of torque at X amount of horsepower, at X amount of RPM, then it has to make X amount of horsepower at that speed as well. So in a lot of cases, even the experts haven't thought about this hard enough and just simply read what their screens tell them. They'll say this engine makes a lot of horsepower but no torque, and then tell you to not pull many revs with it. But the more revs you pull, the more horsepower you produce, because it's a calculation of the two. Torque typically drops off as RPM increases, and horsepower increases as RPM increase. And it's all just maths. There's a lot more to it. I could talk about it for hours, but that's the simple gist of it. We measure torque, we measure RPM, we calculate horsepower, and it's a calculation of the two put together.
So Nelson, what's your opinion on the new ep2 shocks approved for the New Zealand stock car class?
That's an interesting subject actually, because that's something that's going to be, that should have come about a long time ago. Basically, the stock cars, the idea with the shocks was that you could just go down the wreckers and buy a shock, or go and buy a replacement road car part. So there weren't any race car parts going on the cars, nothing too expensive, no double adjustable shocks that would cost them thousands of dollars. And that's great, but the problem is, what is a replacement shock? If you were to get a replacement shock for a Lamborghini Gallardo, it was probably going to be a $4,000 or $5,000 shock. So it's a little bit redundant, no one is actually going to do that, but that is the reality of that rule as well. ep2 make replacement shocks for Corvettes and Mustangs and all sorts of terribly built American road cars, and so they are actually replacement parts, but ep2 also make shocks for race cars, as a lot of superstocks run them. So do other companies like Integra. I think some of their steel body shocks have been approved. I don't know all the details about that, but what's important is that they actually are a replacement shock, and there was debate as to whether they were or they weren't. A lot of people didn't really know, they just wanted to jump on one side of the fence and whinge about someone that was using them or someone that wasn't. And recently Speedway of New Zealand have sorted all that out by just putting a rule on their website, actually, it goes in the rule book at some stage, saying that yes, these shocks are approved and here's the only part numbers you can use. And that's great, they've decided which particular shocks you can use, listed the part numbers, and now there's no debate as to what they are. And that's the best thing about having a governing body like Speedway New Zealand. They can go ahead and just change the rules to make it more clear for everyone, it's fair. It turns out that buying a replacement ep2 shock from somewhere like Pro Parts around the corner is cheaper than going and buying a replacement shock for a Holden Commodore or something silly, whatever was going to be working the best on the stock car from a parts store. So it's actually worked out win-win for everyone. Less debate, better parts, and they cost less.
As voted by the fans, we've got the 1994 teams race between the Rebels and the Scrappers. Another amazing video by Paul Kirk. Such a privilege to be able to use his footage.
And what a wicked teams race it was as well. There was some big names in that teams race, and as you'll soon see, Bomber Hobbs was on an absolute mission, destroying anything with an S on the side of his car, so check it out. got something pretty unique and special up for you guys now. First and foremost, big how's it to the fans in UK. Now, thanks so much for enjoying the show and coming on board. And we've got a bit of UK Formula 1 Briscoe racing to show you at the moment. A massive thanks to the Stockcar magazine crew who gave us permission to use their footage and sent us through some footage. So we got the Stoke meeting, which was held on March the 30th, to show you, and New Zealand fan favourite Frankie Wayman Jr., the 515. Of course, you all know him, comes over to race for the Great Britain Lions every year, takes the Grand National Final, so check out what was happening over in Great Britain.
Yeah, good win. Yeah, it was good. A bit of an off in the final down that end, passed into some spark cars, and Tom come into the back and tied him in, did a bit of damage to suspension and stuff. Williamton and got a 6, but we're back on it in that one. I'm really chuffed with the car, I'm pleased with it.
Yeah, it's quick.
Yeah, it was, Lee got away from me, but he was burning his tyres up, and then I just reeled him in. He just, you know, his car was off the track more than it was on it, but no, he's just tricky and passing, like you see, you know, and I don't know how James rolled over, but he's just so, you know, you give him a good one going in and they seem to come back out in front of you, but no, I enjoyed it, it's been a good night.
It's been a good night, we'll see you Monday.
Your leader in 207. The T76 Marpool and the world champion is in striking distance on the far side. And Perez puts the bumper in and T76 goes out wide. From 515, Frankie Wayman Jr. John Lund getting a bumper shoved in there by John Dowson in 94. That'll come back from Lundy. You can better believe it as he goes down the far side, and here comes Lund again. And the bumper's going in round the pit bend turn, but it's Fairhurst in number 1. Who's leading the way? Started halfway this time. So we're entering the second half of this Grand National qualifying round, and it's Lee Fairhurst, your leader. 5 laps to go next time round for Fairhurst at number 1. The speed going down the far side. Pace 1 and 515. Let's go around the field. Fairhurst climbs the fence, and Wayman comes through. And down the home straight he goes 515 and 1. Russell Creeper still going in 415, but he's checker flag time, and it's Wayman Jr. 515 who takes the national. But Lee Fairhurst at number 1 and Bailey 446.
Hope you all enjoyed that montage of some of Peter Barry's greatest moments on the track. It was put together by none other than Mental One from the Central Hawke's Bay. Peter Barry was taken from us way too soon, and he's always in our thoughts, as well as his family. So I hope you enjoyed that little clip of some of his great hits on the track. Always gave it 110% for Kehi, as well as the Maulers as well, and Hawke's Bay in general. So our poll this week is going to be some of the best smashes from the Peter Barry Memorial over the last few years. All you've got to do is watch these, pick your favourite, and put it up on the Facebook page, and you go into the draw to win the dirt tracks once again. And Peter Barry Memorial, one of the highlights of the year, and hopefully it's going to be on in the next few weeks so we can check that one out. But there you go.
Thanks for tuning in to Smack Talk TV. We've had a blast. Thanks to all the guys that have chipped in. Hopefully some of our overseas guys will enjoy it as much as we are.
Looking forward to getting a good third show for you guys as well, so we'll have a look through our connections and see what we can do for you. But big thanks to Paul Kirk again from Kaiapoi. Appreciate the old school footage you're giving us. Our team that we've got, Aaron, Wall, Mental, Jamie Hall, Rissa as well, who's working hard up in Auckland, and also to Lindsay and the Magic Video Systems teams for coming on board. Awesome footage there. Graham Hughes as well, absolute legend to the game, love his photography. Make sure you go and check all that out. And without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do the show that we're doing, and hopefully bigger and better things to come in the future.
Once again, guys, thanks again. We'll see you episode 3 from KJ and myself.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Little Lewis.